Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery. Before I go any further, if you could please subscribe down below. The channel has a lot of videos coming up. There's a lot of actual, recovery tips videos coming up and how each one of the moderators and how we've either come to full recovery or very close to recovery and the stuff we've done. Rob's been uploading a lot more videos, and remember we have the new channel, new website, ocdrecovery.com, where the resource section is and you can find the reading list and so forth. So today, because my 1 year recovery journey will be coming up in about 2 weeks, so 1 year actually working on recovery. I've probably been working on recovery for about 18 months, but I really wasn't working on recovery. I've been dedicated to working on recovery to change my beliefs and my perspectives for just under a year. So a new video will be coming up for friends and family because I'll be doing another video with my wife, her perspectives on the journey, how it's affected me, and a video of just what I have noticed and realized what's worked for me on the road to where I am today. I can successfully say right now that I am basically recovered from somatic OCD. It has no effect in my life whatsoever. It doesn't scare me one bit. It's still lingering a little bit, so I wouldn't say I'm fully recovered, but in no way am I at a place where I am scared of any sensation by any means, and probably will never be ever again. So I have 5 different things I want to talk about today, and these are some of my insights on the road to recovery that some of the moderators and I have discussed in the moderating group and what has worked for a lot of us, what I have seen a lot of great benefit for myself. So let's start with number 1. OCD recovery is not a quick fix. We all talk about this. If you watch the channel or you're a member of the a Facebook group or you're on the Instagram page, you see us talk about a lot that OCD is not a quick fix because there are a lot of accounts out there, that talk about cure OCD in 1 week, be OCD free in a month. And that's all completely rubbish, as some would say over in England. It's not real. These beliefs you have had are very, very deep and very, very deeply instilled in a chronic format if you're suffering in the way that most of us are. So to think that you are just going to, maybe 15 years of this strong irrational belief and it'd be gone in a week, something is going on, and these people may just be doing it because they don't understand OCD. And as we know, most people in the OCD community, no matter who you are, do not fully understand OCD. Rob has said in the past, most people who work with OCD know enough about OCD to put on the front and back of a playing card, but they don't really know the in-depth nature of OCD, which is completely fine because we have each other and we know people who have recovered, and we actually don't need those people to tell us that we can recover in 1 week, and that's completely fine. So the most important thing with OCD recovery is time and patience. Now, acceptance, I understand. When you're going on the journey to acceptance, you start getting some relief. Chronic anxiety is coming down. Maybe your hyper-awareness, for me, is going down. Naturally so, you're going to think to yourself, oh my gosh, I found something that's really working. Maybe if I just do it more, it will make OCD just disappear. Hannah just talked about this really just in an amazing way in a video that came out yesterday, talking about, forcing acceptance. I know Oliver has talked about this. All the moderators have talked about this. The reason why we all agree on this is because you can't force acceptance. Acceptance comes in shifts. The more you try to force it, the more OCD will elude you and just come in. Remember I talk about, if you watch my videos, OCD is kind of like a waterfall and the water going through the cracks. The OCD will go through the cracks. It will find a way to morph around if you're trying to force acceptance. So ups and downs. Kirsty and Oliver have talked about this recently in their videos. It's definitely been talked about by Rob and myself. So because there's no quick fix, people think that OCD recovery, the journey is linear. So what do you mean by linear? It's just in this. Non-linear would be up, down, up, down, up, down. And it's not even non-linear. It's more just like all over the place. Worst days followed by your best days and vice versa, as Rob says. There's no way, more than likely, if you hold a very strong rational belief for, say, 20 years, like I do right now. Since somatic OCD is basically recovered from, my main actual fear of body dysmorphic issues and not being accepted and not having unconditional self-acceptance is really coming to light because I've suffered with this for 20 years. Basically 20 years, since I was 12 years old. And I didn't even realize it was OCD, which I just thought I was a weird person. So just goes to show you how deep some of these beliefs can be. So some of the tips that people will say, and again, most of you know, I'm a doctor of chiropractic. So we have yoga, breathing, grounding, and distraction techniques. A lot of this stuff does work. for short-term relief and also just healthy benefits. But if you're using these techniques as the sole purpose to recovery, the chances are you're probably not going to reach full recovery with just these techniques or mindfulness. You have to understand your core fears and start to see that they're an illusion, which comes over time with time and patience. You can't just look, as Rob says, you can't just look at the spider tank if you've been afraid of spiders and say to yourself, I'm no longer afraid of spiders. Boom. Your brain's like, yes, you are. You're lying. And sometimes in the beginning, it might actually seem like you are kind of like lying to yourself. You're like just trying to trick yourself in the beginning because you're so scared. And that's just part of it. But over time, when you actually start to adopt unconditional self, life, and other acceptance, it's a feeling. It's a perspective shift. It's not something, again, that you can force. And then one of the biggest problems with quick fixes is LFT, as Dr. Albert Ellis talks about in his books, The Myth of Self-Esteem and How to Stubbornly Refuse, is a low frustration tolerance. Remember, these books were not geared toward OCD recovery. They're geared towards Gen Pop. So in his mind, most people created their own emotional distress because of their perspectives. We now know that's 100% solidified in the evidence, in the empirical data, and in the anecdotes, which is experience. So we know it's very, very, very real that humans have extremely low frustration tolerance. And this frustration tolerance has gotten even lower, in my opinion, as we've gone throughout society because we have so much comfort, so much quick fixes. Back 75 years ago, there was a lot more things that had to be done by hand. Like, maybe 100 years ago, you wanted to build your house. You built your own house, a lot of people, So that's just a small example, but our low frustration tolerance is pathetically low for most people. And I can attest to that because I would complain about like walking the dogs. Think about how low a frustration it would be if my dogs pulled me and I was getting angry about that. There's a deep belief there, whether that life shouldn't be this tough. And that's how it really gets us. Number 2, self-compassion for ourselves and others. I'm going to start with others. I see a lot of people, I get it, it's easy. We all think in OCD that our fears are the worst. We're like, our fears matter more than anyone else, and rightfully so because you're suffering. But no matter if you have ROCD or POCD or somatic OCD or existential OCD or any whatever fear, solipsism, that fear feels as real as it can get for that person. And it's good to understand that. Practicing empathy is extremely important. Empirical data shows the reason why humans have survived as long as they have and why some animals have not is because we can think about our thinking and we have empathy. Anyone that tells you that empathy is not important, we got a lot of stuff. People are like, facts don't care about your feelings and stuff like that. It's a very, very poor way to have a conversation. Empathy is one of the most important things that pushes human beings forward. If nobody was empathetic, I can almost guarantee that the human race would die off. Empathy is that important, and the data completely shows that. So, compassion for yourself. Oliver just talked about this the other day, kind of giving yourself a hug. I thought that was funny. It's just like, hug myself real quick. Nick, you're going through something tough. There you go, Oliver. I did it for you. But it's very, very important. And while you're on the journey, it can be very easy to fall into the self-pity trap. Sadie has done a great video on this because she talked about her struggle with self-pity. I struggle with that a little bit, but fortunately, I haven't struggled with it too much. It's definitely there at times, but not like at the severe, maybe Sadie and Oliver talked about. It's such an easy trap to go down. So non-compulsively at times, it's, you're having a really bad day and you want to say to yourself, man, this journey, it's tough. It's a tough journey. And it would be tough for anyone. So remember, it's very easy to be like, oh, other people, they have no idea what we're going through. But if they were going through what we were going through, they would more than likely act the same way. How would you not? Naturally so. So number 3, day by day. This is really important. So like I said, you've more than likely been irrational for a long time. I don't know one person who has chronic OCD and a chronic format that latched that was completely rational and then 1 minute they were irrational. It does not work that way. You and I and all of us have been extremely irrational for more than likely years. Years. It just wasn't clinical. It was subclinical OCD. It was like lingering, still kind of moderating your life and kind of like putting you in the box. So it's like you're born and then the box gets smaller. OCD loves small boxes and then boom, 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 boom. Chronic OCD, latched. That's a good metaphor or analogy, whatever one you want to say, to explain what OCD can do to you if you don't understand, OCD. So No internal thermometer. The day-by-day journey, it's a new day. You wake up, it's a new day. I really struggle with this. Man, yesterday was so tough. I had a really bad day yesterday, and then I was just like hyper-focused on just like my day-to-day activities. Now, like if I have a really terrible day, I don't even think about that the next day. It's not even on my mind. It's just like, oh, yesterday was pretty tough. Or 3 days go by, oh, these 3 days are pretty good. And I'm never like, oh, well, I had more good days than bad days. That's the internal thermometer. As we know in OCD recovery, some fears have a little bit more physical outward compulsions, contamination, OCD. This doesn't mean there isn't any mental compulsions. I would be surprised if there was anyone that had a fear where there isn't some sort of internal thermometer checking going on. And the hard part is no one can see that but you. This is why it takes time and practice. And we talk about, a lot of people will say stuff like, just stop ruminating. Yeah, sounds nice and easy, doesn't work that easy. This is what keeps people stuck. Until the fear really comes down, I don't have one intrusive thought about somatic OCD. Not two, not zero, not one, zero. I have no intrusive thoughts, absolutely none. So comparative suffering, my wife really harped on me on this one, and a lot of people do this. I see them all. Oh, somatic OCD, breathing, right? That's probably the one that where I was like, oh, you don't have breathing OCD. It doesn't matter who has what. That fear, my saliva OCD feels as real as it can get compared to your breathing OCD. And it doesn't matter because that has an ROI of 0, return on your investment of 0, and never will not have a return on your investment of 0. It doesn't help with recovery, and it doesn't help with the community, and it doesn't help with empathy. All the tools that you're learning in OCD recovery can go out into other areas of your life, and you can start helping family members and friends to be like, hey, like that's not really rational, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense for you to be that worried about that. The journey has great benefits. OCD itself, no benefits. A lot of people that say the benefits of OCD, 0, nilch, no benefits of OCD, not one. It's a chronic disorder. The journey of recovery has a multitude of benefits. Don't let anyone tell you that a disorder has benefits, because it doesn't. Not engaging in the thoughts. Ooh, this is a good one. We got to stay here for a few minutes. There's a lot of people out there that think as thoughts come in. Kirsty did a really good video about this, talking about how when thoughts come in, you don't really want to engage with them. I have fallen for this trap a million times. A million. It's so easy not to, because there's so much false information or misguided information about engaging with the thoughts as they come in. I remember Kirsty said, like, what am I supposed to do at work? Be like, OCD thought, OCD thought, OCD thought while she was typing. Well, that's not real. You don't do that. You set some time in the day to dispute, maybe every other day, maybe 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the night. It's the beginning of your journey. I set no time to dispute. There's no disputing times in my life right now. Maybe in the future I'll have to go back to that. Right now, no. Every once in a while, I'll just be like, that doesn't make sense. And then I already know that because I've practiced unconditional self-life, other acceptance, and uncertainty and stuff like that. So accepting all thoughts, urges, sensations, this is a big problem. Yeah, it is actually a problem. A lot of people believe that it's just intrusive thoughts. Incorrect. It's intrusive thoughts, urges, sensations, images, feelings, all that. You have to accept it all. Because people be like, well, I'm accepting the thoughts, but you're not accepting the urges, and that's still OCD related. Do you see what I'm saying? You have to accept all the categories of intrusiveness. And again, it's not the thought for most people that really gets them. It's the realness of the thought. If the thought was not intrusive, there more than likely would not be a disorder, because it wouldn't be intrusive enough to get you into that sympathetic override. So number 4, ERP is the gold standard. We know that. Cognitive behavioral therapy, gold standard. More so ERP. This isn't to take away from any of that, but anecdotally speaking, from the moderators and people I've talked to in the community, unconditional self-life and other acceptance is more than likely the most important thing when it comes to OCD recovery. Hannah just did a video yesterday about forcing exposures. Something that a lot of people just like, well, give him more exposures, give him more exposures. There's no more, like, I don't need any more exposures. Somatic OCD is like, it's there. Like my body image stuff, like I take my shirt off and tan outside. Like I'm not like looking to expose myself to the outside world. It's just, now I have to understand my fears and really dive deep into the unconditional acceptance in a non-compulsive way. That's something that a lot of people get wrong. You can do every exposure on earth, but if that fear is extremely prevalent, this makes it a little bit more difficult for certain types of fears where there's not maybe so much of a physical outward compulsion. Not to take away from ones that do. They all have their own, journey with recovery. But some things don't have as many physical outward compulsions. And so it's really hard to set some like graded ERP from someone who really understands OCD until you start really getting underneath that fear. Some of the stuff we talk about, Ellis talks about, I can't stand it, itis, I love that. Good, bad, and evil people. We know there's no such thing as entirely good or bad people. Rod made a post the other day about Ted Bundy where he was like, even though I've done all these heinous things, there's other things to me. That can really, trigger people, but it's true. Just because someone does these acts that we deem in society as heinous or evil acts, him himself as a human is not evil. We have, not to go really off topic, but we have what's called the evil theory in psychology, at the PhD level. And they talk about that some people think it's called the bad seed theory. That's the actual name of it. That some people are just born evil. No data suggests that whatsoever, and there is no way to falsify it or prove it, so it is not a rational theory by any means. We know that lifestyle and environmental factors play gigantic issues for shaping people's perspectives. Not all of it, but yeah. Life is ruined. That's a big one for all of us. My life is ruined. My life is over. I can't stand it. Well, I'm here. Been chronically suffering for 2 years. I'm still here making this video for you guys. Well, I got 4 minutes left. So it's not as bad as we think it is. And when we bring down that catastrophizing and that fear response, it gets a little bit easier time and time again. So, and the last one I wanted to talk about is connecting with others. I cannot be any more clear about this. The fact that I go outside and hike, I go to the gym 5 days a week, I love talking to people, has made my journey, in my opinion, a much easier journey for myself because I'm not so caught up in my mind. I can engage a lot. Look at me. I love talking. I love talking to people. I love meeting people. I love hearing their stories. It also was a big exposure for me because I was the most judgmental human ever. I still struggle with it sometimes, but I'm a lot more unconditional other acceptance, which really, really hit me hard. So, live your life. Don't wait for OCD recovery to come to you, which Oliver talked about in his 10 tips yesterday. That's not what you want to do. You want to go out and just do what you want to do and bring in wear anxiety like an uncomfortable coat, like Rob says. It's really, really important. And the last thing I want to leave you with this. I understand some people are still in lockdown. We haven't been in lockdown here for like a year. And our mask mandates are lifting in like 5 days. So it's different for us compared to some other people, but you're really more than likely going to want to limit your social media usage and your phone usage and your video game usage. Not everyone has an addictive personality like me. I have a highly addictive personality. Could go with my ADHD. Who knows? It doesn't matter where it comes from. I just have to be more careful for myself. But sitting on your couch all day and looking at phones, I don't care if you're looking at Rob's page for 5 hours a day. That is not going to bring you to recovery. Living your life and showing your brain there's nothing to be scared of is how you live your life and show your brain that it is okay to move on with life and bring recovery with you. And as Oliver said, number one tip, making OCD a priority in your life. You don't make OCD recovery. If you don't make it a priority, not like, oh, I need to recover now, but a top priority in your life, OCD is going to make time for you. That is one of the best things Rob has ever said, and I took away. So thank you so much. Have a great day. Oh, and one more thing. Remember, subscribe down below. Just a lot of good stuff coming up. I think you guys will really like my 1-year recovery video, which will be coming up in a couple weeks. Thank you so much. Have a great day.